Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. A warm welcome to the currently one live viewer. So, for me, it's the middle of the day. It's about 3 p.m. And just as I was getting ready for this session, I was reflecting on, well, it's the middle of the day. How's the day been going? And there's been the feeling like, oh, it's been a good day so far. And then I was reflecting on how, at the start of the day, I'm thinking about, I'm focusing on God. I'm focusing on like, okay, you're in charge, God, guide me. Asking Bruno for help with everything. And, then as the day moves on, there tends to just be less of that. As I get, caught up in activities or unexpected things happen. And I was just thinking how nice it would be to sort of pause in the middle of the day and remind myself what life is really all about, what I'm really doing here. Like, I'm just not here to do I'm not here to just do a bunch of stuff. I'm here to do a bunch of stuff guided by God. Like, I'm not here to just, respond to things that happened and to do things on my to-do list. I'm here to be guided. One day, I hope, moment by moment. But in the meantime, striving to stay connected to God, striving to ask, okay, what's next? What would you have me do in this situation? Someone sent me a text. They wanted to invite me to this online spiritual group. And initially, my response was, that sounds interesting. Let's, I initially just said yes. I didn't even check in. I was like, oh, it sounds cool. Yes. And then he sent a text with a little more information. Well, there are these requirements. And without thinking of it, I responded, well, okay, cool. Let's talk and we'll see if it's a fit. But that was just my kind of reaction. But as I meditated on it and I just tuned in and listened to myself, it's like I got very clear. Well, actually, no, not right now. I'm full right now. I'm tending some other things. And so that's a very minor example. And I and I wrote a text saying that I just reacted instead of taking a moment and listening from the inside out, listening to where I'm convinced that the wisdom of God is within me and is accessible. But it's much harder to access when I'm just kind of going through my day, or I get this text and I just respond without taking a moment and tuning in and checking in. Just running on automatic. So, whether it's your morning, afternoon, or evening, let's break the cycle of just doing, and let's break the cycle of reacting. And let's come into the present moment. Let's get connected to God, reconnected to God, maybe. Now, Bruno Groening said there is no life without God. Bruno would say, I am nothing. God is everything. And so I'm convinced our ultimate task is to stay connected to God throughout the day. no matter what's going on. And instead of reacting, learning to how to respond from our soul, as opposed to just reacting from habit. So let's take a few minutes. Hey, Gerald. Let's take a few minutes and tune in. Hopefully all of you are tuning in already, but let's take a few minutes of silence, giving away burdens. And taking in goodness and health and happiness and order in the place of burden. Welcome to one and welcome to all. So, hello, everyone. Very delighted to be here. Currently, there's, 8 of us here together live. And of course, welcome to anyone watching the recording. So, yesterday was July 4th, the Independence Day here in the United States. And I was raised here in America and went to American high, middle school and high school and learned U.S. history. But I've always been curious to what it would be like to take a history course in England, because I'm sure they would have some, there would be some differences in the telling of what happened. But today we don't, and some, I'm sure some debates and some interpretations. But today we're going to talk about independence and freedom, but we can put aside controversy. We can put aside politics and history. And because we can all agree that we all want to be happy, healthy, and harmony. Every human being. Hey, Jisoo. Every human being wants to be happy, healthy, and harmony, and live in harmony with others, or have a harmonious life. Maybe slightly different language, but it's a pretty universal desire. And Bruno Groening has pointed out what is the cause of the opposite of those things. What's the cause of unhappiness? What's the cause of disease? And what's the cause of lack of harmony in our lives, in our environment, in our relationship? He called it different words: disorder, dis-ease. The word he seemed to use most often, Nade, a German word. No. Bosse. Oh my gosh, that's the opposite. Nade means grace. Bosse, which means nastiness, viciousness, evil, is the cause of all of our problems. And of course, from the perspective of the United States, they were fighting for freedom, and fighting off tyranny and fighting off oppression. That's the right. That's their version. And let's just say for them, we'll just put that aside. And I would say actually all of us are fighting for those things, because Bruno said he likened the spiritual path to a battle or to a war. Not one that's fought with guns. And it's a battle, a war, a struggle with evil. And to anyone who says it isn't a struggle, well, first of all, you're welcome to believe or disbelieve, whatever you like. But to someone who says it isn't a struggle, I would say, okay, don't have a negative thought all day, like all day long. Don't have any fearful thoughts. Don't have any resentful thoughts. Don't think about unnecessary problems, anything negative. If something's right in front of you in your house that needs to be fixed, so then you can then think about that, but don't think about anything negative, and see if you can do it for an hour. And by the way, stay mindful of all your thoughts for an hour. And I think most people would confess they can't stay mindful. They can't watch every thought they have for an hour. And if they were able to, they would be shocked to report how many negative thoughts they have. And I share this for myself, is the deeper I've gone into observing my thoughts and deciding, okay, and learning to discern which thoughts are good and which thoughts are not good, I am shocked. I'm utterly shocked. And so many of these negative thoughts are like little whisperings that are going on, and like we kind of hear, but kind of don't. And Bruno Groening described the adversary. He described evil as slithering and slinking and constantly trying to find its way in. That speaks to my experience of how the negative thinking works. And here it is. Here's what Bruno said. Once we make a decision to get on the good path, Bruno said, evil will fight back. Evil will always do everything not to be set aside. And evil is so sly and knows how to slither in, sticking to everything. Hi, Lapiche. So believe it or not, and so I'm just referencing US history as a metaphor, But I think it's a powerful metaphor. The idea was that that they didn't have we didn't the United States didn't have a liberty, that something else had power over them and was misusing that power or was harming them. And friends, that's my exact understanding of what it means, that we are all in that condition, more or less, some more, some less, depending on how much evil we've taken up. As Bruno said, once you take in some, you truly you're forced to serve it. You're forced to serve that evil. And so what is the way to overcome it? Well, Bruno spoke about engaging our will, wanting the good, having goodwill or the will for the good, having faith in God, especially when things are going our way. When a bump happens, that's when the rubber meets the road in terms of cultivating faith. It's so easy to have faith when everything's going well. But to have faith when things aren't going so well, it's a slightly different, it's a slightly different, it's a slightly more strenuous undertaking. So let's reflect on all of this, because the ultimate, and I'm going to touch on this a little more. So the healings are wonderful, helps are wonderful, and the ultimate aim of Bruno Groening's teaching is actually real freedom from all evil, and we're all on the path to that, or I hope, I feel I am, and I believe that many. It's not for me to say where anyone else. I know that I'm on the path and I'm striving for it, and some of the people I've interacted with on this channel, I think it's a universal human striving, and the ultimate goal is that the ultimate truth, at least according to Bruno Groening, is we are a divine soul, and we're all here on a path seeking freedom. And the word Bruno used most often, the German word Heil, which, yes, it does mean healing, but it also means salvation. So let's spend a little time taking in some more good energy and reflecting on this desire for freedom, and reflecting on until we're fully free, we're actually not fully free. Until we're fully free of all evil, then there is you could say, an outside government that has at least some power over us. So it requires discernment, friends. So just when I started that silent time, this thought came to me very briefly. I'm going to be teaching a new class. I teach a style of dance that and I'm going to be starting a new class at a new dance studio, and I'm so excited. And right when I started this silent time, I thought, oh, well, maybe this thought came, oh, maybe I could offer it at this another location. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. That could really work. I wonder how much they pay there. I wonder if it would, about 15, 20 thoughts about offering a new class at a new location. And then I finally caught it. I was like, this doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. Now I reflected on it. Oh, I can't do that right now. I'm putting all my attention on this, not all, but in terms of like new project attention, I'm putting my attention on this one new class. I need to build that up first. So here's the question. So first of all, if I hadn't caught that, I would have just, the mind would have gone on and on and on, and maybe even made a plan to like, oh, I'm going to reach out to them or da-da-da. So, but I caught it, I maybe only wasted 45 seconds or so, maybe a minute, I don't know. So here's the question. Was that thought to offer this class at a second location, was that a good thought or an evil thought? Now, let's define good and evil, at least in terms of what Bruno meant. Good is that which is helpful and nourishes life, and evil is that which is harmful to life. So ultimately, whether that was a good set of thoughts or not, that's really between me and God. But I'd like to share my conclusion that actually those were evil thoughts. Now, again, we have to be really clear what Bruno meant by evil, that which is harmful to life. Here's why I think those were evil thoughts. Because I have a tendency to, first of all, I have a tendency to do too many things. So I'm going to give that away. I have a tendency to spread my energy out. I'm going to do that away. And I have a tendency to start one thing and then start another thing and start another thing. So I'm going to give that away. But maybe even more importantly, at this new studio I'm going to be teaching at, it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge blessing. And my attention really needs to be there on that. And not only that, there are other parts of my life, but to even think of starting a new class and it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And so I'm going to say it's my conclusion that those thoughts were actually evil thoughts. It's okay with me if you disagree with me, but that those thoughts did harm. They distracted my attention from connecting God. They took up some of my time. Said more simply, they weren't harmonious. They aren't in alignment. That's not what, in my view, what God wants me to think about right now. In my understanding, God wants me to be in the present moment and take in the divine energy and water this new seed that's been planted, not plant a whole nother seed. Good, Christine. I'm glad it's resonating. And so that's my conclusion. And ultimately, here's what Bruno Groening said on the topic. He said, well, I'll just paraphrase. He said, you need to consider every thought and every word and every deed and take up, that you take up and consider whether it was the right thing to do or the right thought to take up. Because see, I said yes to that thought. Like that thought came like, oh, maybe I could teach at da-da-da. And if I just had been like, no, thank you, But I was like, oh, that's interesting. I said yes to it. I took it in. It didn't lead me anywhere particularly harmful in a huge way. But in my view, that's not a healthy direction to move. That's not moving towards health and towards God. So if this is moving towards God, it was like just an ever so slight detour. Not a huge sin, but I highlight all this to highlight how evil works. It's all evil wants to do is pull us away from the good and harm us. It's really simple. Evil's not complex, but the method, evil's desire, is not complex. Separate us from God and nature. Separate us from life and love. The shenanigans that evil will undertake in order to do that, well, as we read from Groening, it's sly. It knows how to slither in and stick here and there. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful for, well, certainly helpful for me. Yeah, it's great to hear and think about. Nice. Good, Pamela. Good. Hi, Luna. So I'm going to read enough about me and the wild thoughts that come into my head. I'm going to read some of Bruno Groening's thoughts. So this is from the speech God Sent Us a Son. It's from the Bruno Groening Stiftung. Let me see if I can post a link for it. One moment. All right, here is a link for it. And I am picking up on page 5. The very, very bottom. Actually, I'm going to read a paragraph before then. So the paragraph up until now, Bruno really talks in this speech, he talks a lot about Christ and who Christ is and what Christ is all about. And this is kind of what he concludes. And it's so rich, and I think about it often, and I think about it. And here's what Bruno said. For he once, he in this case meaning God, gave us so rich a gift. Again, I must say, he sent us a son, his son. And he worked through him, and through Christ he showed us the way. He has given more certainly than just an earthly gift. This is a personal gift. Naturally, God expects from us not just anything, but just this, that we also take this, his gift, into ourselves. And I ask you now, are you not in need of it? Or do you still not believe in the divine order? Or do you by any chance believe that disorder prevails even there with God? No, friends. If you stand in need of the good, you can put your mind to rest. You don't need to pray to Groening for it, or even worship him. Pray to God. Bring your heart's desire in this way before God himself, and believe that your heart's desire will be fulfilled for you. Don't make big words about it. On the contrary, you don't need to say anything to those around you. You simply have to do it and have faith in the good. I say it so often, have faith in the good. That is, have faith in God, who has decreed only the good for us. For evil is around us and has to a large extent gained a foothold in human beings. That is, evil went to work in the human body, and the human beings themselves, had to realize this. And the human beings, that is, the evil went to work in the human body, and the human beings themselves, had to realize that this had become a great disorder. No one can deny that you stand in need of order, the order that God himself is. And again, the German word for order, I believe, is more accurately translated as harmonious order or harmony. The order that God himself is. And here too, my dear friends, if you have this heart's desire, if you say yes to all that is good, and if you have faith that your heart's desire will be fulfilled for you, it will happen. Naturally, you must look for the fault in yourselves, not in the people around you. Don't always push it away from yourself and say, yes, well, I am certainly not to blame. I'm not aware of any fault in me. He and he, or he and he did it. Oh no, friends. Always look for the fault in yourself and be open and honest with yourself. If you are not honest with yourself, every evil word you hear, whether you say yes to the evil word or are too cowardly to tell the truth to the person, the one who has said the evil word to you, or to confront him with the truth in any way, this alone is already sin. In that case, you have already taken in the evil, and after that, you only give out evil. I ask you, dear friends, do you really want to go on ecking out your life on earth in this way? Do you believe that you will regain good order that way? These evil thoughts, the evil words that you yourself have listened to, come from the evil side. And it is for this very reason that we should be on guard. We should restrain ourselves. We should urge ourselves on to what is good. And we should always stand by the good. Or, to put it clearly, by God. Now, my dear friends, that's a lot of words, which I have already given you, often and always, on your way. It is now time that you really take them to heart as well. And today, I say it here, it is not entirely necessary, or not necessary at all, to have faith in groaning, first of all. What is necessary is that the human being have faith in themselves. And human beings have faith in all that is good in the divine, especially as they stand in deep, deep need of this for themselves. This is the most important thing. And if you always say yes to what is good, and you always stand by the good, and no longer turn away from the good, no longer turn away from God, no longer turn away from that good path that has been decreed for them by God alone, then things will go well, and then things will go well for them on this divine earth. But whoever keeps on falling prey to evil and then believes they must follow evil, such a person could never tell the truth to anyone. For if they were to bring the truth to the people around them, if they spoke the truth to them, they would be laughed at or mocked. My dear friends, my friends, people who do this are cowardly. They are slanderers. They slander. And just as they slander themselves, they slander God. And just as they do not dare speak about God, just as they do not take the good to heart because they only speak untruth, so the untruth will fall back on their own heads. I'll sum all of this up by saying, what a person sows, they will reap. And if you scatter good seed, my dear friends, you will have a good harvest. Everyone forges their own fortune. That is to say, everyone hammers out their own good fortune for themselves. On the other way around, if someone feels drawn to evil, and if they do not hold it at all necessary to have faith in the good, well, they will then experience evil, and then they come and say, I am a believer. They blaspheme God and say, I don't believe anymore. I can pray as long as I like. God won't give me, as they would say, and how often have I heard it too, won't give me back my health, my peace, my good order again. It is not those around you who are at fault, my dear friends. You are. And call yourselves to order and walk the path and have faith in yourself. Have faith in all that is good. Believe too that you stand in need of a great deal of good for your body, and that you will also receive the good. So that was a page and a half, and wow. I mean, just never ceases to amaze me how much Bruno can say. He doesn't beat around the bush. So let's spend a little time in silence. And reflect on these words and take in some more good energy. Actually, oh wow, I just want to highlight that. Lapiche said the German word Ordnung, that it also means law. And I like that, and I resonate with that in terms of what, if we think of law as the way things are supposed to be, what's natural. Beautiful. Thanks, Lapiche. I didn't know that. So let's take in some Ordnung, some order, some harmony, some divine law into ourselves. Love it. Lapiche wrote, the law of God is love. Wow. And I would add to that than the experience of health and order and harmony. And so it's like that's maybe the effect of love. Beautifully said. Thank you, Lapiche. So for those who just joined, we read a little bit from a speech of Bruno Groening's. You can see I posted the link for it. So I'm going to back up a little bit and highlight a few things. So first of all, Bruno spoke about the gift of Jesus, the gift of Christ. And he said, oops, one moment, sorry. Need to find my page. One moment, pardon. I need a little ordnung. Oh joy. I'm sorry, friends. Please, if you can tune in for another moment. There's one page that's misprinted, so I just need a moment to sort these out. Sorry. Hi, Anisha. Okie dokie. Welcome to Anisha and her foster kitten. Love it. Everyone's welcome, no matter how many legs you have. All right. So speaking of Christmas, Bruno said, He, God, once gave us so rich a gift. Again, I must say, He sent us a son, His Son, and He worked through Him. And through Christ, He showed us the way. He has given more than certainly just an earthly gift. This is a personal gift. Naturally, God expects from us not just anything, but just this, that we take this, His gift, into us. And it's so profound. I don't feel I can say much more about it, except Bruno says that God expects us to take Christ into ourselves. And then Bruno continues, and I ask you now, are you in need of it? Or do you still believe in the divine order? Or do you by any chance believe that disorder prevails even there with God? No, friends. So that's one of the really important things I've gotten out of Bruno's teachings, is the idea that God is perfect. And so you hear people say that. However, the way I was taught about God, I couldn't really believe it. I was taught that God was this wrathful, vengeful, judgmental, punishing being who was also perfect. Like the two just didn't match up. But thanks to Bruno Groening, I've learned that God is love and goodness and harmony, and that God never punishes. So I think it's a very common view, is many people, because of how they were taught about God, they believe that God is kind of both perfect and crazy, that God is somehow good and evil, or in this case, that God is both harmonious and unharmonious. And Bruno points out that that's just not true. Continues, if you stand in need of the good, you can put your mind to rest. You don't need to pray to Groening for it or even worship him. Pray to God. Bring your heart's desire this way before God himself, and believe that this, your heart's desire, will also be fulfilled for you. So, I'll just keep reading. Don't make up big words about it. On the contrary, actually, I just want to highlight right there. So I felt like, oh, there's something to say. And then I felt I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. So I just kept reading. So that was me in a good moment where I was tuned in. Like this thought came, and instead of just speaking the thought, I tuned in, and just for a moment. By tuned in, I mean I listened inside, and it just didn't feel right. And I honestly believe that's how we're meant to live life. And moment by moment, following what feels right to us, not just what feels good, like candy feels good on your tongue, but from the inside, what feels good to our soul. And occasionally, maybe the soul says yes to candy. I'll continue. Don't make big words about it. On the contrary, you don't need to say anything to those around you. You simply have to do it and have faith in the good. I say it so often, have faith in the good. That is, have faith in God, who has decreed only the good for us. So, I love it. Bruno calls God the good. And so what changed my view of God was Bruno's teaching that God never punishes, and Bruno's teaching, and this is a paraphrase, this is from Freddie Haas, Alfred Haas. Freddie said that Bruno Groening always said God never punishes, but God allows many a hardship to occur so that a lesson may be learned or to make a reparation. So what I understand that to mean is God doesn't punish. If you do something wrong, God's not going to hit you. But God will allow the natural consequences, which Bruno talks about later on. You reap what you sow, so that you can learn a lesson, or so that a reparation means a repayment, generally for a past crime. It's like a debt, payment for harm done. That's a very different view of a God that gets it's a very different view. One is a God that gets angry and punishes. Another is a God that allows us to experience the consequences of our actions so that we can learn, or so that we can pay off a debt. That if we harm life, we've accrued a debt. That a God that maintains balance and supports learning. It's a very different view of life and God and the universe. Then Bruno continues, for evil is all around us and has to a large extent gained a foothold in human beings. That is, evil went to work in the human body, and they, the human beings themselves, had to realize that this had become a great disorder. So it's pretty intense news. Bruno says, and this is in 1959, or about then, he says, for evil is around us and has to a large extent gained a foothold in the human beings. In the year 2000, Greta Hausler, who knew Bruno Groening and understood, I believe, understood what he meant by good and evil in the state of the world, she said, well, things have actually gotten worse. And it's my view that things are sort of continuing to get worse, that while light is happening, that there's still quite a lot of evil in this world, and in some ways that evil is increasing. So Bruno also points out that evil went to work in the human body. So that's where we experience the effects of evil, because the soul is protected. Bruno said often, the human being is and remains divine. And went even further, saying that the soul remains divine. The soul can't be tainted, but this evil can surround it and can affect the body. And as he said many times, force the body to serve evil. And as he says later on this speech, once you take evil in, then you have to give it out again, unless you repent of it, which he didn't talk about here, but he talks about elsewhere. No one can deny, this continuing with Bruno, no one can deny that you stand in real need of order, the order that God himself is, the order of harmony or divine law. And here too, my dear friends, if you have this heart's desire, if you say yes to all that is good, and if you have faith that your heart's desire will be fulfilled for you, it will happen. Naturally, you must look for the fault in yourselves, not in the people around you. Don't always push it away from yourself and say, yes, well, I am certainly not to blame. I'm not aware of any fault in me. He and he, or he and he did it. Oh no, friends, always look for the fault in yourself and be open and honest with yourself. If you are not honest with yourself, every evil word you hear, whether you say yes to the evil word or are too cowardly to tell the truth to the person, the one who has said the evil word to you, or to confront him with the truth in any way, this alone is already a sin. So 2 things there. One I want to highlight is that, and Bruno said, that we bring the evil on ourselves. It's past actions, past bad seeds we've planted. This is so important to have a harmonious view of life, because without this view, life just seems to be a bunch of random events happening. But Bruno is providing what I see as a very harmonious view of life. You plant good seeds, you get good results. If you're having a bad result, it's from a past bad seed you planted that's finally sprouted. In that case, I'll continue. In that case, you've already taken in the evil, and after that, you only give out evil. I ask you, dear friends, do you really want to go on eking out your life on earth in this way? Do you really believe that you will regain order this way? So Bruno said every negative thought we take in, until we repent of it, sooner or later, it's going to have an impact on our actions, or it'll come out of us in negative thoughts, or negative words or negative actions. Except for the case of grace, which we'll talk about at the end. These evil thoughts and evil words that you yourself have listened to come from the evil side. And it is for this reason, this very reason, that we should be on guard. Once again, a battle metaphor and this need for vigilance. Friends, I don't like this. I don't like this part of my job. I wish I could say, no, you don't need to be on guard. You don't need to be vigilant. You don't need to watch your thoughts all day long. I wish I could. That's just not what Bruno Groening taught. And so it's not like I'm able to do it all day long. More and more, I'm more aware and I catch them more. And so my view of it is it's just a practice. You get better and better and better at it over time. And I wish it's to accurately portray Bruno Groening's teachings, I feel that I must point out that he spoke of the spiritual life as a battle, and he spoke of the need for vigilance and taking evil seriously. Now, taking it seriously does not mean stressing about it. That's the good part of my job, is yes, it's challenging, but this isn't about being afraid of evil. This isn't about stressing. This is about having faith in the good and having vigilance and presence and filling ourselves up with good energy and then facing one thought at a time. Discerning. Oh, good thought, not good thought. I'll continue. We should restrain ourselves and we should urge ourselves on to what is good, and we should always stand by the good, or to put it clearly, by God. Now, my dear friends, that's a lot of words which I have already given you, often and always on your way. It is now time you really take them to heart as well. And today I say it here. It is not necessary or not necessary at all to have faith in groaning, first of all. What is necessary is that the human beings have faith in themselves, and the human beings have faith in all that is good, in the divine, especially as they stand in deep, deep need of it for themselves. This is the most important thing. Now, Bruno twice now has, many times he's talked about the recognition. Above, he said they had to realize that this had become a great disorder. Here he says, especially, I didn't say realize, but especially stand in deep, deep need. And earlier he asked, do you stand in need of order? It's phrases like this that lead me to say that one of Bruno's essential fundamental teachings is the recognition of our need for God. And the recognition of, and the humility that comes with that. Bruno once said, if you adopt the thought or attitude, I want to be healthy, then ask God for help. A human being is too weak on their own. So there's this thing about needing to recognize that without God, we can't win this battle, can't win this struggle. I'm just going to sum up what I read. Oh, that feels like a lot, actually. I think I can pause there. So let's reflect on all of this. As always, this is just my understanding of what Bruno taught. Please tune in and read Bruno's words for yourself. Thanks, Anisha. That's a great question. I don't take questions during community hour. It's one of the few rules I have. And what came from that is Bruno never took questions during community hour. So I thank you for asking it. Soon I'm going to have something on here where people can post questions. I'm going to pass on addressing that for now. So let's spend a little time reflecting on these words, reflecting on Bruno's words, and just feel into if what I said feels right or not. Ultimately, even if what Bruno didn't want us to just believe him because, like, oh, Bruno Groening said it. That's not what he wanted at all. He wanted people to feel in. And the other thing I would say for Anisha and anyone's question is write your question down and then ask Bruno for an answer. And just read some of Bruno's wrote, and then tune in. And then I'm going to set something up for questions down the road. Thank you. So Bruno, actually, before we go into silence, so Bruno spoke a lot about recognizing our need for God and how evil operates and our need for harmony and the recognition that we brought the evil onto ourselves. And I've highlighted what I think is really important, that helps us to have an orderly view of the universe and an orderly view of God, that God is only good and doesn't punish. So let's take a little time and take in this good energy. Take in the goodness and order that God, as Bruno said, that God himself is. If anyone wants to share what they're feeling or experiencing from tuning in. I'm currently feeling a deep peace and stillness, tingling in feet, tingling in fingers. So here's a quote from Bruno. It's just about one thing, really, about that which is purely divine, what is inside man, and that is his soul. Because it is through his soul, man has the pure divine reception, the reception of the divine transmission. To save the soul, dear friends, this purely divine soul, that it is not grasped by Satan's claws, that is what this is all about. So my understanding is that that we are all engaged in a fight for our independence, for our freedom from tyranny. And that tyranny isn't external, though there may be challenging circumstances. The primary opponent, the primary tyranny, is actually an energy and a consciousness, which Bruno calls bosse, evil. You find this talked about in other traditions: attachment, illusion, delusion, ignorance, a special kind of ignorance, a kind of a spiritual ignorance. And here Bruno has defined what his work is about. Saving this divine soul, and this divine soul means you and me and everyone. So that it's not grasped by Satan's claws. Because we've all experienced evil, right? We've all had that minute or hour or day where there was just one negative thought after another. It's not fun. Grasped by Satan's claws is I don't think it is a metaphor, but it's also not a metaphor. The word bosse, which means evil, it also means nasty and vicious. Bruno, in my view, was a master with words, and I don't think it's a mistake that he used that particular word to describe our opponent and adversary. So amidst all of this, there is grace. There is amazing grace. There are helpers such as Bruno Groening, such as Christ, who are able to really guide us on our way, help us on our way, dispense so much grace and so much help, and even take on illnesses. Bruno Groening would describe that sometimes he would take an illness into his body and burn it up. Christine wrote, I feel that all is well inside of me and at peace, and everything is happening in divine timing. Well, I'm wonderful you're experiencing that, and that sounds like what faith is to me, is trusting that everything is in God's hands. So I'd like to share a help I experienced. I moved a couple months ago, and I had been in my previous house for 20 years, friends. 20 years. In fact, I moved out like 20 years and 10 days to the day. It was almost 20 years to the day. And what I want to share about is how well the move went. About a month, I was very clear it was the right thing, but there was, fear and thoughts would come. And so I just asked Bruno for help, and I started tuning in. I would tune in, and then I would I'd be like, okay, go and I would have an idea of like, okay, go put this in a box, or go give that away, or move this over here. And I would do that and maybe do something else. And then I would just go on with my day. And then as it got closer, it'd be like 3 or 4 times a day. I would tune in and be like, okay, go do this. And then I'd feel sort of tired, or the negative thoughts would come. So I would just stop and tune in until I felt good. Then I would do it again. And literally, it was me doing it, but it honestly felt like the house was packing itself, because it just happened slowly over time. It was guided. I can honestly say there was almost no stress. The only stress was sort of the negative thoughts that would come, and I would notice them, and I would either stop them, or I would just stop and tune in and fill up with more good energy and do it. And the funniest thing was, there was this one pan that I was like, do I take it? Do I throw it away? Da da da. I just felt so strongly to hold on to it. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, no, I want to get rid of it. No, hold on it. And a couple times I even put it out on the curb for someone else to take it. And then I'd go get it again. And I'd hang on to it for a week or two. And I'd be like, no, get rid of it. I felt very strongly to keep it. And so I moved out, but it was a 2-part move. So first I was moving, and then I was going to come back and get my cat. I was like 99.9% moved out. I was just going to, I don't think I had anything left. But I left that pan there. My pan and my cat were really the only things left in my house. And actually, no, that was actually pretty much everything. And so I went back to get my cat, and I was staying in a hotel because there wasn't a bed. But because that pan was there, I was able to cook in my house. So I was there for about 5 days. I really like to cook. I don't like to eat out often. I just like to prepare my own food. And that pan, it just made the trip. It made the trip so much better. I can't even describe. It just, and it was so beautiful because I wanted to give that pan away. And I took action to give it away. And I just felt so strongly, no, keep it. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. But I did. And so that was a little help. So the little help was the pan. The big help was no stress in packing my house. And according to psychologists, moving is the third most stressful thing that can happen to you. And I can honestly say it was not a stressful, it was really not a stressful process. Thank you, God. And thank you, Bruno. Another amazing help that I would like to share. Let's see, there's one more that wants to be said. Thank you. Not liking to eat out. So friends, when for most of my adult life, I ate out like 95% of my meals. I just could not cook for myself. It was a psychological block. I tried many, many times. I would go to the grocery store and I would either panic and leave, or I'd go to the grocery store, I'd buy a bunch of things, and I'd cook for 1 or 2 days, and then I would stop, and the food would go to waste, and I would throw it all out. It was a psychological, spiritual, it was just too overwhelming. I just couldn't do it. And I tried for years. About every 6 or 7 months, I would try, and the same thing would happen. And so I kind of had this joke to myself. I was like, I guess I'm just addicted to eating out. And so it wasn't a horrible thing, but it wasn't what was best. It was definitely not in order. It definitely meant I wasn't at choice. I actually wanted to cook. And it often meant that I couldn't provide myself with as healthy as food as I wanted. And so I found out, so this has been going on for all of my adult life, you know, from college to when I found Bruno's teaching, which was, I think I was 37 or 38 when I found Bruno's teaching. So for like 18 years, I'd been trying to break this habit and I could not. And I had the joke, oh, I'm addicted to eating out. And then one day I was like, well, Bruno Groening can heal people of heroin addiction or morphine addiction. I just had recently heard a healing of morphine addiction. I was like, I think he can heal me of my addiction to eating out. And then I just asked, Bruno, please, I want to be able to cook for myself. And then I forgot about it. And within 2 weeks, I just went to the grocery store, no panic, no fear. I bought a bunch of groceries, no panic, no fear, and started cooking food. And for the next 4 years, I prepared all my meals. I went from 90, is more like 97% eating out to 97% eating in. It was amazing, whatever that block was. And I had tried so many times. I can't even tell you how many times I tried to break this on my own. And I was literally unable. Sometimes I wasn't even able to purchase the groceries because I would show up at the grocery store and I would just panic and be like, oh my God, I can't do this. And now I go through phases where I eat out sometimes. I eat out more. Like now I'm in a cooking phase where it's like I just prepare all my meals for myself. And I'm truly grateful for this healing. And whatever your burden. And I just heard a woman's father went clinically insane from alcoholism. He was, I think, in his 80s or 70, and he drank. He had such a problem with alcohol that he actually went insane, and he was institutionalized. And so she started tuning in for him, institutionalized like against his will for multiple weeks. While he was in there, she tuned in for him. And when he got out, he's like, I'm done with alcohol. And he was able to go without alcohol and be fine for a while. And then I don't know exactly what happened, but he went crazy again. I don't know if he had a relapse or he was institutionalized again. And this time he was court ordered to have like a guardian, an assistant. And when and she just kept tuning in and kept asking for him. And when he got out, he was so much better. And it didn't take very long for him to really get his sanity back, and even for the court to release him from this legal necessity of having to have someone watch over him, and is free of the compulsion to drink and free of, think about it, friends, insanity. It doesn't get any worse than going insane and going completely out of control. So this energy can do anything. It can orchestrate a move. It can orchestrate leaving an object behind to facilitate a trip. So think about this. I started to plan my trip. I started to pack in November and I left in January. And this whole dance with the pan started in November, but Bruno Groening knew, or God knew. And then I came back. And so in February, I came back, I left in January and I came back in February. So like 5 months in advance. That's how God is. An 18-year compulsion. I was really compulsed is another way to say it, to eat out. In 2 weeks, it was gone. Someone who, advanced alcoholism, without a higher power is next to impossible to treat. And insanity, from a medical point of view, insanity, anyway, I don't need to go into the medical, but the lifting of a lifetime of alcoholism and lifting of insanity. This energy is limitless. So whatever your burden is, when we all, what I've realized is until you're fully free, you're not fully free. So I don't know anyone who's fully free. So we all have burdens and challenges and habits, some of them big, some of them small. But this energy can help with and relieve any and all of it. You're welcome, Anisha. Yes. Tune in for the moving. I mean, just ask Bruno to guide every step of the way. I mean, it's a good way to live. Ask God and Bruno to guide everything. And to ask for divine help in everything. It's a good way to live, but it's definitely a good way to move. It's a good way to move in general, and then it's a great way to move your, an actual physical move. So, friends, let's tune in. Let's tune in and take in and give away any burdens, anything that doesn't feel good, doesn't feel right, little or big. Hand them over to our friend Bruno. If you find yourself having negative thoughts about a situation, just give the thought away and ask for help with it. So when Bruno Groening gave a community hour, he invited people to just sit in the energy and sit in the silence and then stay in silence for a while. And that's what I like to do at every community hour that I host or that I attend is, and he would tell people to, at the end, to listen deeply inside themselves. And to not get up until it felt right to do so. So I invite people, I talked about this idea of listening and responding. So I invite people to practice it right here, right now. I'm going to end the transmission soon. I invite people to just sit in their tuning in, listen deeply inside themselves, and not to move until they feel moved by the Spirit. Very grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.